Hey everyone. So, I've been watching a lot of PlayStation 3 Collection lately, or PlayStation 3 Collection videos, and I realized I don't really talk about my modern stuff too much. This is actually on the other side of my living room, where I sit and I have my normal TV and everything, and this is actually one tower. This is where I keep most of my games. You can see some PlayStation 4, Xbox One, 360, and then the PlayStation 3 stuff. The consoles are actually on the other side of the entertainment center, which is a mess right now, so I'm not going to really show you all that, but maybe another time. But you can see it kind of bleeds into some of the 360 games. For the modern stuff, I mean, when you compare this to like my Dreamcast collection and the Vita collection, this is really it really pales in comparison. I've I'm really slow in adapting PlayStation hardware. I've always been that way from the PlayStation 2. I didn't really get into the PlayStation 2 until near the end of its cycle, and even now I don't really have a whole lot of PlayStation 2 games. It's kind of with the PlayStation 3. I didn't come into it until the second revision came out, which I have the slim, not the ultra slim, which is like the third version of that hardware, but the second one. It's actually currently in my office because I have it hooked up for streaming and everything. Basically, the PlayStation for me, that generation actually, both the 360 and the PlayStation 3 are kind of, um, how can I explain that? In the reason that I have them is more because I think of them as modern arcade hardware. Uh, Especially now these days where your modern arcades when you go and you actually find a place that has them, they're nothing more than kind of older PCs, and that's kind of what these consoles are. And that's how I view most game systems ever since like the Saturn, really. Because and the whole point of home consoles from the very beginning was to bring you the arcade experience to home. Now, since then, it's kind of exploded and it's come to all kinds of things. You have these long, 40-hour RPG games. You have your interactions with like Call of Duty and all that, which is great. I have nothing against those. I mean, just most of my focus is on more of the arcade type games that are close to or exact perfect ports of arcade games. And I'll kind of point those out as we go through that. One of my goals too is to actually build kind of an arcade cabinet that can both house a PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 in them, just because I think at this point we finally got into that era where we can do the almost near perfect ports of those games. The Saturn had really great 2D fighters from your Capcom, like the Darkstalker series, which I absolutely love. Then you started seeing games like your Street Fighter versus Capcom, or Street Fighter versus X-Men versus Street Fighter, I should say. So we finally gotten to that point now where we're getting some of those modern arcade games. The PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360 were excellent for those, especially with the Xbox 360 having their arcade line where you got like The Simpsons, you got the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles arcade, you got the all those different kinds of games. The original X-Men arcade, which you can still have up to 4 players on, were exact ports of those arcade games, and you never really got those up until this point. So it's kind of one of those things I really enjoy about that generation of hardware, and I'm continuing that into the Xbox One and PlayStation 4. So keep that in mind as you're going through. That's where you're going to see a lot of fighting games. You're going to see a lot of shmups. And then every once in a while you'll find kind of the RPGs and other platform games kind of sprinkled throughout. So diving right in, we're going to kind of start off with a few highlights here. Alice Madness Returns. I'm not really a big fan of the EA publishers. I was really surprised when they decided to come out with Alice. I played the original on PC, and with this release, one of the things was it came with a download code that you can actually get the original Alice game. And I guess there's a big controversy around releasing this on PlayStation 3. Like, they didn't really want it on the hardware. They wanted to kind of keep it PC based, but for whatever reason, they were allowed to actually get both of those games on the PlayStation 3. And I'm not sure if it's because of the graphical power, finally, they could achieve that. Whereas if you look at like there was no way the PlayStation 2 would really be able to play this kind of graphical game. So that was actually a pretty great find, and I guess this game is getting kind of hard to find. Anarchy Reigns, being that I've been with the Sega Addicts now for about a year, this is one of our party games. This is one of Platinum's earlier releases with the voice actor Steve Bloom, who is more known for his role as Spike from Cowboy Bebop. He's the robot for the Toonami series. He's really grown as a really great voice actor. Unfortunately, I have not had the opportunity to meet him yet, which I would love to. But this game, you got Bayonetta as a guest character as a DLC. It's a great kind of a beat 'em up, all for all. The online is great with friends. The story mode, meh, it was okay. It's very short, but overall, I kind of think it's an interesting game itself. You don't really find many like that. And we play that quite frequently online. Of course, you got your exclusive fighters, Arcana Hearts and Aquapazza, which were released on the Taito system in arcades. Getting in here, and I'm sorry for the little light. I tried to light up things as much as I could, but of course you have your Batman games, your Blaze Blue, the successor to, more of a successor to the Guilty Gear series when Sega had it. And we'll kind of get to that a little later. Catherine, great Atlas game, love the platform. Cross Edge, one of the earlier releases on the PlayStation 3. This is a strategy RPG, but one of the reasons I wanted to get this is it reminded me of the Namco Cross Capcom game that was released on the PlayStation 2, which was a Japanese-only exclusive. It never came here in the West. When this came out, I was excited because being a Darkstalkers fan, they had the Capcom characters in this. This is more of a strategy RPG game. But this one you don't really see too often. It was really fun. Of course, DC Universe Online. This is the physical version when it was released. Now you can get it digitally for free. It's kind of crazy. This game was like $60 when it first came out. Of course, Dead or Alive Ultimate. They released Dead or Alive 5 on the arcades. And that's still pretty fun, even on the PlayStation 3. DuckTales Remastered. This is actually one of the first print runs. This only came with a pin inside and a code. There's no physical disc. And as far as I know, there's only been like 2 or 3 games that were kind of like this. Marvel vs. Capcom 2 on the PlayStation 3 came out with a digital code and a physical box. And that game, for whatever reason, now goes for like $200 on eBay, which is kind of crazy. But it's kind of strange. You get a physical box and then you just get a physical code. One of the only import games I actually have, Dengeki Bunko Fighting Climax. This is one that I wanted to jump in. I really wanted to get this game. Again, an arcade release only, and then they finally released the first one for home consoles. Of course, there is a second one that was a follow-up that has more characters in it, more refined system. Unfortunately, we never got that here in the West, and I have not imported that one. I'm not really sure if I'm going to or not. Surprisingly, I actually have more trophies on the Japanese version than I do the English one. And there's really no difference between the two, other than they did add in English subtitles. Kind of a unique mechanic that they don't do a lot is when you have the intro of the characters before the fight actually begins, you have English translations of what they're saying to each other, which is kind of a fun interaction. And I wish some more games would actually have that. There's no difference between the two as package-wise. I mean, you can see kind of the front cover art is basically the same. Aside from they have Dengeki spelled out here in English, we are missing it over here. The back sides are different too. They have different screenshots of the game. The other thing is the manual is actually larger in the Japanese version. There's actually 41 pages to the Japanese manual, where there's only 17 on the English one. And basically the only thing that the English one is missing in the manual is they actually show you some basic button combos in the Japanese one, so that adds a couple extra pages to it. But otherwise, there's not really much of a difference aside from the back cover art. Yeah, I really enjoyed that one, and I do kind of wish that Sega came out with the second iteration of this game here, but I guess they felt there was no need, or the sales weren't really well for that one. Of course, you have the Guilty Gear Limited Edition sign. Always gotta promote and support the Guilty Gear series. I've been playing that series since X came out on the Dreamcast. Then, of course, you have your light gun games. Again, these Overkill was never House of the Overkill. I guess was never in the arcades, but it's still I find it fun, especially with using the PlayStation Move. That was one of the reasons I even have the Move, was to even play that game. And then you have your Persona 4 Arena Ultimix. Moving down to the bottom shelf here, Another one of the few limited editions. This is the Neptunia one. You don't really see that one often either. I guess it sold out pretty fast. But I do have the limited one for V, which that game is sitting here, which came with a lunchbox, and after that I was like kind of done with limited editions. Aside from Tales of Xillia 1 and 2, I do have the limited editions of those, but that's about it. Heavy Rain, I really enjoyed the crap out of that game. I don't know what it was, but just the different paths. It was kind of engaging. I really enjoyed that series. Kingdom Hearts, I actually had those on the PlayStation 2. I picked it up for PlayStation 3 just because, and now, of course, they announced that they're going to do both games on one disc for the PlayStation 4. Go figure. Of course, you got your King of Fighters. One of the reasons, too, to really enjoy... This is available both on the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3, but I really liked the Midway arcade games. Rampage, Joust, of course, Robotron. Greg from Arcade Impossible has just about every port of Robotron. And I've picked up a couple of them. The strange thing is this release is probably the closest that I've found to the actual arcade. Dreamcast had one of their compilations for the Midway collections, but because there's no second analog stick, it really makes it awkward to use the face buttons for the directions to turn to fire your character. Being that the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 both have two analog sticks on their controllers, it makes it much easier for this. Of course, other games like the Rampages I mentioned, it was the reason for me picking these up. And these are pretty much the exact arcade ports for this collection. So that's one I would really point out. If you're looking for more of those arcade games, definitely get that one. Another oddity, my GameStop only got one of these in, and I happened to snag it, but this is like a combo pack, and I'm not sure, a couple WB games and some other ones came with the game and a movie. So this includes actually the original Mortal Kombat on Blu-ray and a 2-pack. The game, of course, Injustice was a much better version of this. This is kind of like their beginning into that series. It was an okay game, but I was more interested in the fact that this is a combo pack that included the movie. And it was like a budget price for like $30 for that. But you don't see many people pointing those out, so I thought that was kind of interesting to find. Of course, you got Ni no Kuni, Still Casebook. No More Heroes, which was an exclusive to the Wii for a long time, and then they released this with the Move support. I really like this game. It does look better on the PlayStation 3, although the controls are kind of hit or miss, unless you have a move to kind of do the same stuff that the Wii was capable of naturally. It just doesn't feel the same to me. I'm screwing up more games here. Of course, Satsune Miku, my guilty pleasure. More Street Fighter. Here's another kind of strange one that I don't see a lot of people point out. Siberia Collection was only available on Amazon, and it might still be available now. This is like a $30 budget game. But it includes both Siberia 1 and 2, which beforehand were on the PlayStation 2 and original Xbox. Maybe on PlayStation 2. I owned both of these for the original Xbox back in the day. I have since sold them out, but when I saw this, it was like kind of one I was interested in. I really like the old point-and-click adventure games that were on the PC. And this is one of those, just on a console version. But again, this is one that not many people point out, and I'm not sure if this is something that people have just overlooked, or they don't feel it was something they really wanted in their collection, but kind of on one to check out. The games are kind of fun, the lengthy, graphics are pretty good. It's a basic PC point-and-click game. Another arcade port, this is on the title systems, Time Crisis, Raising Storm, Time Crisis 4, and Dead Storm Pirates. These were light gun games in the arcade, and of course with the PlayStation Move, that captures those arcades perfectly. The games themselves are pretty short. I would also recommend that you have a second person to play these games with, as it's kind of boring to go through just single player, but definitely have the Move for this as well. It does not work well with a regular PlayStation controller. It just doesn't give you that arcade feel. I was really happy to find out that they actually had this in the PlayStation 3, because these were some of the games I was playing at GameWorks a lot in Schaumburg, Illinois. And I enjoyed the crap out of those games. So, of course, naturally, I wanted to pick them up with the PlayStation 3. Of course, you have the Uncharted series, Tomb Raider, Under Defeat, another Taito arcade. Under Defeat HD Plus. Under Defeat was actually an exclusive in Japan on the Dreamcast. This again is not one that you'll find in GameStop. You'll find this on Amazon. This one's actually rising in price. This is a shmup with helicopters, which I really enjoy. It's kind of fun. It does feel like the arcade version. The graphics have been updated from the Dreamcast one. Overall, I would really recommend getting this one if you're into the shmup. This includes also a soundtrack, which is awesome too, because you don't really get a whole lot of soundtracks for shmups. So that was a fun one, but definitely would recommend Under Defeat HD. Getting towards the end here, it's getting kind of harder to see. We have just Valkyrie Chronicles, and then you have the Yakuza 3, 4, and Dead Souls. I really like the Yakuza series. It feels a lot like Shenmue, or what Shenmue should have been, in a sense. But the stories are great. Sadly, the whole series is coming to an end with Yakuza 6 coming out shortly, and then they've got the prequel of the remake of Yakuza 0, kind of a prequel to everything. Really looking forward to that. But yeah, that's just kind of a glimpse. That's my entire set that I have for the PlayStation 3. Again, for me, it's just more of an arcade hardware type system. So I don't really get into the Call of Duties or some of those other ones. I like to be able to sit down and just pick up a couple games so that, you know, your fighters are perfect for that. Go a couple rounds, throw in an arcade stick, get that feeling back of being in an arcade, but you're in your home. So, but yeah, that's it for now. Maybe next time I'll go through the Xbox 360 arcade games that I have and kind of point out some of those fun things. So, but as always, guys, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.